Today we are shooting the third tutorial on root weaving. I mean application of root weaving technique to paper basketry. Today I'd like to show you how to weave such fishtails. These ones, I mean. I tried different options of weaving them. The optimal option I found is easy to weave and rather nice looking. As well, I'm going to share my experience of trying different types of paper. I believe it must be especially interesting for newcomers who haven't tried this technique yet. However, I hope those who already work with this technique will find it interesting too. I'd like you to add comments to the tutorial. Root weaving is quite fascinating, so let's master it together. I'm constantly facing new discoveries while getting to know this technique. I've been inspired to try this fishtail pattern by the nice photos I found on the net. Besides, I've been encouraged to try and create a panel picture by the task we've got at our creative school. The task was creating an ethnic-styled panel picture. Well, actually I doubted it would be a success, but I've tried weaving with normal advertising papers. This panel picture looks very nice, and by the way, it is the one daughter has chosen for school. Take a look, please. Those who live in Ukraine must know Eve catalogs. I've sorted the tubes out and mostly use the orange ones. These dark tubes are made of advertising booklets of Bear's store. As for the white tubes, they've been made of a bit specific paper. I've already told you about it. What I mean is, you don't necessarily have to prepare any special tubes. A panel picture can be made of normal advertising paper tubes too. Then I decided to experiment with color and shape. I mean, beside plate items, you can shape covers like these. My next experiment was a jewel box like this created in this technique. However, I've concluded that it is not very practical. The technique is good for a cover. As for the whole item, it would be more reasonable to combine normal root weaving technique with a stripe of fishtails. The basic part of the item has to be tighter. So I've tried making such a decorative stripe on a big item woven in the normal root weaving technique. I mean, this technique can be applied in different ways. I prepared a workpiece, beginning of a round item woven in a root weaving technique. So I woven a few rows, after which I start braiding. Let me share such a trick. I've been disturbed by the fact that a joint is often visible. True masters do their best to prevent it. So I'd like to make a joint invisible too. That's why I propose you such a trick. I'm not sure if you will make use of it or not, at least I'll do try. The optimal point of lengthening is when a working tube sticks out from under the tube of the base and you are going to wrap it around the basic tube. Take a note, please, that I try my best to cut a tube at the sharpest angle I can in order to insert the end into the new tube very deep. I drop some dragon glue from a syringe and try my best to put it onto the cut end as deep as I can in order to hide the joint under the tube of the base. At least it is what I do to achieve this result. In all the other points, the tube is subject to much bending and twisting. This very point is optimal for creating a joint, because firstly there is a sufficient gap and secondly the tube overlaps and doesn't bend too much. So I personally find this point optimal for tube lengthening. So, it's high time to start shaping a fishtail. Wrap the working tube around the tube of the base. And continue weaving in a normal way. A fishtail is especially good for the segment where the weaving is widening. I've performed the joint. Continue. Wrap the tube once again. The next step. Wrap once again. And the next step. I find this technique optimal because it doesn't presuppose any additional inserting. You just weave in a traditional way, just adding an extra coil. Well, in the first row the fishtail is not visible yet, you'll see the result later. I'm using the tubes of the base of a contrast color on purpose in order to emphasize the fishtail on the dark background. So continue weaving. Lengthen the tube once again, let's repeat the actions. Make a very sharp angle, drop some dragon glue. A few words about the paper used. In our case, these are normal newspaper tubes. On the dark ones, you can even see the printed letters. The light tubes are made of the rolled newspaper long ago. I just sprinkled them with water mixed with some fabric softener, which has made the tube silky. I admire this trick of tube preparation. As for the tube ends, I haven't wrapped them with polyethylene. It is easier to piece holes with rigid tube ends. They work like a needle. You can see how much I've woven before I have to cut the tube. Now it's time to cut the tube at the point of gluing. So the first row is finished. Then pass on to the next row. Here I've got a coil, wrap the working tube again, skip one coil and lead the working tube under the tube of the base. As a result, we've got a new coil above the coil of the previous row. Lengthen the tube again and continue. Now you can already see the fishtail shaping. Let's repeat once again. Take a look, please. The fishtail is becoming visible already. Take a note, please, that on the wrong side I've got such stitches. Well, actually they look okay because the weaving is rather tight, but the pattern is quite different. In most panel pictures woven with ribbons I've seen on the net, this pattern is applied to a stripe consisting of a few rows. After a motif of such a pattern, you can continue weaving in a normal weaving technique. And then you can add another motif like this if you like to. I'm going to show you later on another sample. In this particular case, I'm weaving a few fishtail rows and get back to normal root weaving. One more note. Since our item is supposed to be in a bit dome-shaped cover rather than a flat picture, I'm shifting the tubes of the base little by little in every following row. For a panel picture, I place them right one above the other. In case I'd like a dome-shaped item, like here, I shift. In case I wanted a more sharp transition, I would shift them like this. Well, in our case I don't need a sharp transition, I just need a slight curve, so I'm shifting the tubes little by little. Further to my previous thought, take a look please. Here I've got a few rows of light fishtails on a dark background. The intervals between the fishtails have become too big. You can see how long the stitches from the wrong side are. So I've passed on to a traditional root weaving technique. Since I'm going to create a large tray, I'd like to try the following idea. As you can see here, I've got dark tubes of the base. Then I've passed on two light tubes of the base and woven a few rows this way, light working tubes on the light tubes of the base. After which I've introduced dark tubes into work and decided to weave one more motif of dark fishtails on the light background. I'm planning to finish with light working tubes on the light tubes of the base. What I mean is there are different possible options of applying fishtails. First of all, you can try varying the colors of both tubes of the base and working tubes. Let me show you how to pass on to normal tight root weaving. I've got 5 sections of fishtail here. Now it's time to pass on to tight weaving. I perform wrapping in the following row again, after which I make 2 additional coils. One, 2. This way I've got 2 coils. And fishtail again. I weave a fishtail in the same very way. It is the way I'm used to. Continue. 2 additional coils. Well, it depends on the intervals between the fishtails. In my case, 2 additional coils are optimal. 1 coil is not enough. Lengthen the tube and continue this way, wrapping the whole cover with coils. After which you start entwining every coil. Gradually I'm shaping a cover like this, Now it's time to lengthen. I'd like to share one more trick I've discovered by trial and error. I believe it is noteworthy. When I had a sharp widening on a panel picture, I was making additional coils after every stitch. I made a coil between every two neighboring stitches. As a result, I've got some shifting, which I dislike. That's why now I'm performing a coil after every other stitch. Got it? Then no additional coil. In 2 or 3 rows, I'm performing a coil where I've skipped one. As a result, I'm getting gradual widening. Do you see? An additional coil, no additional coil. A coil, no coil. Alternate every other stitch. I like it much better this way. It has made my next item much smoother, with no sharp transition from row to row in the point of widening. Well, actually that's all I was going to share. Fishtail is an interesting pattern. Good luck to all of you in mastering it.